What's going on, everybody? On My X, episode number 4 coming at you. My name is Faisal Khan, aka Goofy, and I'm joined by my two friends and co-hosts, starting with Hunter JJX, aka Justin Joseph. How you doing, buddy?
Yo, what's good, fam? Episode 4 of On My X. 4 weeks of doing this with you guys, which is a lot longer than most AM teams can stick together. So glad to see us going through this thing. God. Also, too, like I randomly drank damn near a gallon of pool water today. It's a long freaking story, so I've been a little queasy, but stoked to get back into this with you guys. Yeah, it's pool a long, weird story. But yeah, what's up, Wes? How you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm hoping the chlorine doesn't get to your head and you having some hot takes that you already have at times. Maybe that can affect it. Maybe it'll actually help. So looking forward to that. Had a fantasy football draft today. I'm psyched. Football's coming back. I got Lamar Jackson on my team. Couldn't be more pumped to have not only a Raven, but the best quarterback in the NFL. So I'm very excited today, and I'm having a good time.
Awesome. Justin Joseph, Hunter J. Jackson. We got Wes Price, aka Clutch, obviously. Guys, for me this weekend, I didn't really do much aside from obviously we commentated the MCC Pro Series for Halo 3. So that's going to be a big talking point for us today. Hunter, why don't you go ahead and break down what we saw with this tournament this past Saturday?
Yeah, man, it was an awesome weekend. I was so excited to get to cast some Halo 3, a game that is such a huge part of so many of our lives. We had an insane Pro Series showing. I mean, I don't think any of us were expecting or predicting that 5 out of the top 8 teams would be teams that came from Open. That's pretty unprecedented. Normally we might see 1 or 2. So let's go ahead and just dive right into the results. As you can see here, first Inconceivable, second Sentinels. Don't worry, we'll dive into discussing the finals.
Yeah, status quo. Already I'm like, wait a second, is that right?
Status quo third, Magnanimous fourth, and then your 5th through 8th teams were Dewey, BTH, All Natural, and Burgertown. So Wes, what jumped out to you this weekend about this tournament?
Yeah, you said it in one of the sentences you were opening up with, right? How shocking it was that we had 4 AM teams make it out of the pool play. And with that statement goes 4 pro teams that did not make it out of pool play. I'm talking about Reps and Crowd Pleasers specifically. Reps being the team that we know and love, and Renegade, Penguin, Stellar, and Eco. Those guys have world championships. Those guys are typically in the finals of these kinds of tournaments, and they fell very short. And I know that they might not have as much Halo 3 experience. They might not spend that much time on Halo 3 or enjoy it, but you still expect them to make it out of pool play. So that's a little bit of an embarrassing look from that squad. And you kind of enjoy seeing those guys and the individual skill that they bring. And we missed that yesterday. So looking for them to kind of rebound. Crowd Pleasers, another team that just got top 4 in an H2A MCC Pro Series. Then we go to Halo 3. They don't have the same success. They don't make it out of pool play as well. That pool C had to have been stacked, and everybody was playing well. So both the teams that you would have thought advanced from that pool actually didn't. Very upset that we didn't get to see those teams play in the bracket play, because they bring a lot of firepower as well in Crowd Pleasers. But the most disappointing team to me, and this is kind of going to be like a corny answer, I would say, but it's Magnanimous. And that I really thought that team was going to be in the finals. They put in so much time, so much work. They grind every day. And once again, they ran up against the biggest final boss in their eyes and Sentinels, and they fell short again. I feel like if they were ever going to beat Sentinels, this was going to be the opportunity for them to do it. Sentinels only having 1 practice going into this tournament. I thought that Magnanimous really was going to have a shot to beat them. Unfortunately, they fell short again, and they have to go back to the drawing board and come up with a new game plan. And I'm not sure if that game plan even exists for that team. Hazel, what'd you see?
Yeah, no. So Wes, I agree with your points, and you kind of touched on some of the teams that underperformed this weekend. I want to touch on some of the teams that overperformed, or I guess a better way of putting it is surprised me. Teams that surprised me this weekend, starting with, and we'll talk more about the finals, but starting with Inconceivable. These guys really came out and played, really showed everyone what they're truly about. We've talked about them time and time again on the broadcast with the MCC Pro Series, and even on the show, how players like Falcated, Ace, Boo Boo Doo and their addition of Tusk, the new guy on that team. But, we've talked about them and how talented they are, and what they're missing in order to really find themselves as a consistent contender in the Halo scene, right? The last 2 H2A Pro Series, they were actually in the grand finals both times. So they've they've been getting pretty close. And then this time around with Halo 3, these guys get a victory. So hats off to Inconceivable. You guys played great the entire day and definitely deserve that win. Another team that surprised me and in my opinion played better than I expected was Status Quo. The roster of Flame Sword, Hysteria, Roy, and Gab. These guys, when I see this roster on paper, I know they can be a solid squad, but it just looks so, for lack of a better phrase, out of place for me, right? That all those players on that team, I'm like, whoa, I like all those players and they're all really good, but I just wasn't sure how it was going to fit. And, they had some close matches. It took down, the MCC Amateur Tournament champions, All Natural. So they beat them in a really tight game 5. So they showed resilience there. And overall, they played well, losing a close series to the champions Inconceivable. And lastly, a team I really want to give a shout out to is Dewey. The Omega, Filthy G, Wanward, and Porky J. These guys didn't even make top 8 in the first Amateur MCC Pro Series Tournament last weekend. They fell outside of the top 8. So they technically didn't qualify for the Pro Tournament. But long story short, there was a shortage of pro teams. So Halo, or 343, HCS, I should say, reached out to some of the teams that were outside of the top 8 and got kind of entered into this pro series. Not only did they barely make it in, then they win their pool and go on to get top 8 in the tournament. So good job to those guys, really, showing what they can do in Halo 3. We know all those names and we fear them sometimes when we play them in matchmaking, right? All those guys we call them online warriors sometimes, just in between me and some of my inner circles, but we know that they're good players, and shout out to those guys. So yeah, those 3 teams, man, really surprised me.
Well, first things first for me, I think, Wes, you owe Status Quo an apology. I mean, basically on the broadcast, you said they were too old, too slow, too washed, and they came out and put on a show for us and secured a top 4 spot. So what do you got to say?
I want to say that my prediction was still correct.
Dude, they actually could have beaten Inconceivable,
to
be fair.
All right, let me. All right, are these my thoughts or yours? Yeah. So. Status Quo, I actually was going to apologize, but now that you kind of force it on me, I don't want to do it. But in all seriousness, love everything I saw from those guys. The fire, the drive, the passion, what I remember those guys to be back in the day. You saw a glimpse of it, and I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to show us a glimpse of it. So I'm pumped to see those guys play in 2 weeks, because that's 2 more weeks of practice that Roy, Flame, Hysteria are all going to put into Halo 3. And then what kind of a level are they going to be playing at that time, right? I left Gabriel's name out because Gabriel's been playing this whole time, kind of. So he hasn't had that lapse of time where he wasn't playing with a controller in his hand. I experienced that for a long period of time. I left Halo for a couple of years back in the day, and when I tried to come back, it was hard. It was not the same. I was not nearly as good. It took a long time for me to get back to where I wanted to be. Flame and Roy and Hysteria all did a phenomenal job of getting back into the groove and picking up almost to where I would think they can get to, right? I think their ceiling is still so much higher that what I saw from the Status Quo roster isn't even like that was good play, but we know those guys and we know what they're capable of. They can raise that bar, and that's the bar I want to see in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I have questions about Status Quo. Although I agree with your points, Wes, in that they have what it takes to contend. I find it hard to predict them to make it past that 3rd, 4th threshold with teams like Sentinels, Inconceivable, even some of the teams that didn't really make it far in the tournament. I think they would have trouble with, the BTHs and the Magnanimouses of the world. And I don't know, maybe, obviously Roy and Hysteria are nasty at Halo 3, and Gab and Flamesword are right up there too. But maybe some part of me is kind of still latching on to, obviously I disagree with the premise that, they're old and washed, but something about the roster for me is missing, and I hope to be proven wrong by them in the next Pro Series. But don't get me wrong, 3rd, 4th is nasty, but for me, and I'm sure for them, it's all about winning. And the question is, can they do that?
I'm just so biased because I'm sure you guys can relate to this, but I just love every single person on that team, man. Such great figures in the Halo scene for such a long time, and pillars of the community. I don't know a single person that's not liked Roy, or, Flame, these guys that are just done it at such a high level and with such class. And so to see them come out and get a top 4 finish, kind of their first tournament back. Hysteria, if you guys remember, didn't even play at all last year in any of the Halo 3 like revival events. So to see him come out in his first event back, get a little top 4 finish, definitely made me feel good, and I was happy for them. I want to talk about that Pool C though really quick. Like when I was looking at the pools and we looked at Pool C and it was all natural, your champions from the Open Series, it was Reps, which is Eco, Renegade, those guys who have won a world championship. Crowd Pleasers was in that pool as well, and Dewey, this team that kind of slid in. I don't think any of us would have predicted that Dewey was going to win that entire pool, coming from not even securing an open spot, win that entire pool. Dewey literally took down All Natural, the champs. They took down Crowd Pleasers, and they took down Eco's team.
That's impressive.
Yeah, super impressive to come out of nowhere like that. And they had to change a player because they had Fantasy. They had to, at the last minute, I think the day before, they found out they were going to play, and Fantasy couldn't play, so they had to pick up Porky J the day before, and they come out with that kind of fire.
But to be fair, but those 4 are always playing. They're like a team. It probably helped them to have Porky J than it would have if they had.
I was about to say Porky J is probably like
he fits that. They're like 4 pieces to a puzzle. Like those guys are always together.
Absolutely. The fact they could just jump in together like that and like have that type of success. I mean, in the first round of the Pro Series event for top 4, they played status quo and it went to game 5. They just happened to run into a Hysteria with Sniper on game 5 Pit TS. There's not much you can do in that scenario, right? So
no, they're good. You
they're
can't
one game away from being
in
in the top 4, So I wanted to kind of jump in a little bit on Eco's team though, because I don't know, man. Like something bugs me about the fact that they just like don't care. Like, cause the excuse that they didn't play Halo 3 is not an excuse when you have players like Boo Boo Doo who came up in Halo 5, just won an event in Halo 3. Like, what's the deal with that?
It's just, I mean, for me, okay, I'm on the other side of the fence. For me, I get it. Like, I get why their hearts aren't fully in it. And it's easy for us to sit here and yell at them or try to be like, hey, you guys should give it your all and really try to give it, prove your worth in Halo 3. But the reality is, first of all, I'm sure these guys are just enjoying. I know Renegade plays Halo 5 all the time. Stellar has been playing more Halo 3, here and there, but he enjoys Halo 5 too. These guys, I don't think it's that necessary for their success in the future. I don't think they need to dedicate so much time to Halo 3 if they don't enjoy the game, and they're still good players. They still could have won or gotten top 2 in that pool. I genuinely believe that. They probably lost some close games. I personally didn't get to watch the series, so I can't say for sure, but I'm confident in that team and that roster of 4 players: Penguin, Eco, Stellar, and Renegade. I know in my opinion, they're going to be a top 3 roster in Halo Infinite or any future Halos, that in terms of like what MCC does or what HCS decides to do. Halo 3 is just that one game that is so specific to the core of the game and the mechanics and all the nuances are so specific that I understand why these guys, haven't really been caught up to speed. And that's a good point about Boo Boo Doo and some of the other newer players who really have excelled. But I just think that's just a topic of interest. I think Boo Boo is just maybe he enjoys Halo 3 more. Maybe those guys don't enjoy it, so you can't really blame them if they don't put in hours and hours to play a game that's really old, and they don't really. There's not going to be a huge future for Halo 3. Obviously we're playing it right now and we all love it. It's nostalgic, but they're a nasty group of 4 players, and if they're not interested in the game, then I get it. I understand.
I'm with Faisal, but I want to take a different angle, and I'm really worried for what this team is doing to themselves right now. It's clear they don't want to compete in these. It's clear as day that they have no interest in wanting to compete in Halo 3, and that's fine. But in doing so, and underperforming and losing to the teams you're losing to and not making it out of pool play, what are you doing to your confidence? You got to think those guys are mentally strong and those guys are veterans to this point. But at some point, I'm on a team and I start losing to players like Porky J in a tournament atmosphere, and I start to look around like, what are we doing with this for? Is this really the 4 players that I'm going to go into Infinite with and expect the level of success? That's only like a thing that those guys can answer, right? Like that mentality is going to be tough for those guys. And if they're fine with it, then that's fine. But me as a player, I'm not trying to sit there and force myself to play in a tournament that I clearly don't want to play in. And then when we get upset by a team that we have no business losing to, multiple teams that we have no business losing to. We are individually 4 players that should never be losing to these teams, and we are losing to them. This is a problem, in my head at least. So those guys, I kind of want to see them sit out. If they don't want to play, that's fine. Sit out.
I'm gonna have to agree, dude. Yeah,
let Eco, if he wants to play, go team with like Trippy and some other pros that want to play in the Halo 3 tournament.
Gilkey's way too good to not be. Special shout out to Gilkey, man.
Absolutely.
That kid is nasty at Halo 3. He deserves. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so mad we didn't get to watch him this weekend, dude. I wanted to watch some Gilkey POV this weekend or this this last tournament.
He's incredible at Halo 3. So like I want to see I'd much rather see like a ragtag group of like 4 guys put themselves together and wake up on that Sunday tournament and be like, yo, let's go out there and let's beat Sentinels. Let's go out there and beat Inconceivable.
It's like those old pancake, what was it called? Pancake warriors that Gandhi used to put together, like, or like legends, when they would just come together because they knew they still wanted to play, even though they weren't necessarily on those like the super famous rosters anymore. They knew they still wanted to put on a show and do it for the people. And like I hate the half-assed stuff, right? Like, and knowing Kevin Ecosmith, like, do not get it twisted at all. Like, this dude wants to win at all costs. He does not settle for losses. He does not want to go into a tournament to lose, period.
No, and Renegade, like you said, Faisal, like Renegade's playing in these Halo 5 tournaments. Like, if they want to play Halo 5, there's Halo 5 tournaments every weekend, dog. Go play in those.
And they are, you know. So, and again, I mean, who knows? We'll see what their roster or what they decide to do for the next MCC, Pro tournament in a couple of weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if Eco maybe. I mean, it's hard to actually to say that because I don't know what the rules are exactly in terms of who he would even be able to seed.
Yeah.
Oh, true. Okay, so he can definitely do whatever, and we can't. It's easy to speculate. Maybe they will stick together and play it again in the Open and then the Pro. But yeah, Eco Smith and even Penguin's really nasty at Halo 3 when he plays, but obviously he doesn't enjoy it. I see him tweet on his Twitter. He says he doesn't like Halo 3. I think he even said he's not going to play it. No, he didn't say that. But Eco Smith and any kind of group of 4 players or 3 other players with him can easily compete if they get the right group of guys.
Absolutely.
I mean, where's Ola, right? We all asked the question, like, throw together a squad with Ola, Eco, Ola, Trippy, Gilkey. That's like a top 3, top 2 roster right there. Like, let's
that's a team that can win.
Absolutely. So I don't know, man. It bugs me to see that type of I just don't think they have the excuse of, if you're going to be in, be all in, because like I said, the players like Boo Boo Doo Boo, etc. Also crowd pleasers. You brought them up as well. Like, that team just got done getting top 4, was it, in the last H2A Pro Series event, and they made a change that on paper was like, okay, they're getting rid of Lifestyle. Their good friend, he has a Smurf in matchmaking called Drop by My BFFs. Like, it's one of those things where they were tight. They got rid of Lifestyle and they picked up Commonly, who you think is like, tried and true veteran player. Straight Sick and Commonly got second on the Denial roster. And then they get absolutely mollywopped in pools by, some good teams, all natural and whatnot. But that's absolutely not living up to their standards. These are pro players.
Yeah. And to be fair, that whenever there is a pool of death like that with 4 nasty teams, there's always going to be 2. I mean, it's easy to say, but there's going to be those 2 teams that underperform. But at the end of the day, look at that list of 4 teams. If any of those 4 didn't, like, if any of those 2 didn't make it out of the pools, we'd be having this conversation about the other 2 that didn't make it, right? So I think a little bit of it, or actually a lot of it, was the fact that they got unfortunate with how the pools ended up. But at the end of the day, it's about wins and losses, and they were on the losses side. Yeah.
At the end of the day, you got to hold yourself to a certain standard, and when thrown against the wolves, you got to come out, right? Like, and as a competitor, you're the only person that can control your own destiny. So I like the point. I know they had a tough pool, both the teams, but sometimes it's either in you or it's not, and it wasn't in either one of them this weekend.
Gotta ISO. I love that. I love that this tournament was so awesome in the matches that we got, that we haven't even gotten into talking about the bracket yet, and we've already pretty much been diving into some insane things that happened, right? But I want to turn away from talking about losers for too long. So let's jump into the top side of the bracket, what everybody saw and witnessed, the finals. It was Inconceivable versus Sentinels for round 3. Is this becoming like a new, FB Carbon type of rivalry? We've seen them go back and forth. I don't know, but it's cool to see these teams kind of be consistently placed there. And what did we see? We saw Inconceivable come out and finally get that dub over Sentinels in Halo 3. Wes, why don't you take us through a little bit of that series and what you kind of saw, man?
Yeah, dude. I mean, what a series that was. I mean, game one was a slaughter, right? And after game one, we're sitting there thinking this could be a very fast series and we could just be crowning Sentinels and we get to eat dinner a little bit early that night, right? Then that Amp Slayer shows up. I think largely due to the game types in this best of 5, it really gave that opportunity for Inconceivable to win that game 5. And I'm not saying that they need those specific game types, but I really do think that the game types that they got were very beneficial to them as a team, and that's so important when looking at game types and trying to have success during a tournament. I see that Amp Slayer, and I'm like, oh, we get host on an Amp Slayer. Oh yeah, this is going to be fun for us, right? Because host online is so powerful on a Forge map, especially like Amp Slayer. You are able to take over a game, and that's exactly what we saw Ace do. Ace was able to clean up the kills fast enough to get like the kills that would have turned corners. He was probably able to kill them just fast enough before they could turn the corner. He got those kills quickly enough to where he was able to react to other things going on the map. And because of that, they were able to get a very early lead and run away with that game. I love seeing that out of Ace, especially out of the performance after the performance we saw in game 1. Big rebound game. Game 3, right? Construct King. Wait, was it Construct King? It was Guardian Ball.
It was
right?
Construct King.
Construct King because Sentinels just held that top setup for what felt like forever, right?
Yep.
And that was where we went back to the whole blowout story, right? We thought that because Sentinels they didn't even look close to comparison ready for Construct King. A game of a long game of control. Sentinels really showed us that they were like the more tried and true team.
And they made it a short game, right? They took the long game, made it short.
Right. When a team ends the game early on Construct King, you know it was a bad game, right? So, I mean, not a whole lot to say there. You saw the true and tried Sentinels, the guys we know. But Game 4, when I saw Game 4 was Narrow's fight, I go, okay, we got a chance. Like, we got a chance for a Game 5 because having played Booba and Ace and those guys, on Narrows specifically, those guys know how to take over a Narrows game, especially when they have the snipers in their hands. And I kind of prefaced that going into game 4 on the broadcast, and immediately we see an opportunity where Booba and Fallicated got snipes, they got control of the top middle, and they did not look back. Those guys ran away with the game. It felt like it was it ended up being like a bloodbath, but I loved the opportunity set up by that team because they're so aggressive on Narrows. They are all individually skilled, and they're going to run straight at you and do it top middle like they should. And they ended up winning that game and taking it to game 5. And the old saying goes, anybody can win a game 5. Pit Slayer was the name of the game. We had a little bit of a reset, but in the reset, I would say that Inconceivable played near perfect. They got 4 dead at the beginning. They got all the power ups and power weapons. And they did exactly what they needed to do to win. And they hit some incredible shots along the way. Tusk, Boo having some great games. I mean, the whole squad was on fire, and you love to see it. And that's what it takes to win and take down a team like Sentinels.
Yeah. No, you pretty much broke down every single game in that series to a T. I was impressed by the way Inconceivable played. But I'm not going to say I was extremely surprised that they were able to win the series, right? Because at the end of the day, Sentinels, number one, they didn't really practice much before this tournament. I think they scrimmed one time, I think the night before, maybe 2 nights before, and before that they had never even all 4 played together. So that's something to consider, okay? As compared to the guys in Inconceivable, Tusk, Boo, Falcator, and Ace, these 4 guys are playing almost every single day in matchmaking and just grinding, right? So as far as to circle back around to Justin's, he was kind of half joking, saying, oh, is it a new rivalry? I don't think so, because I still put teams like Eco and Renegade and these guys in a different tier than I do with Boo Boo Dubu and his friends. Not to say that these guys aren't a top team. It was looking out into infinite as well, but there are we got to put the brakes on any sort of
Eco's an amateur player now, bro.
Sentinels. Okay. So just pump the brakes a little bit. Obviously, Inconceivable is a nasty team, and they're playing with Tusk. He's for those of us in the inner circle in the Halo community, we know Tusk. He's one of those kids that kind of made his name in Halo 3 after the fact, like after it was on the circuit and MLG and everything. He made his name in Halo 3, and he grinds the game. He knows the game. And he performed well this weekend and helped them. He was an important part in that team winning the tournament. And then obviously Falcated and Boo Boo, Nasty, and every, pretty much all the Halos. And same goes with Ace as well. So, these guys played. That game 5 is actually what I want to talk about. I don't want to ramble on too much, but I want to break down the game 5. Okay. Number one, I have never, no matter the team, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong or give me an example, but it might be hard to think off the top of your head. But I've never seen any team, let alone a dominant, arguably the best team in Halo's history, lose a game 5/game 11 that bad. That was literal domination on a game type that there's no excuse of, like, everyone knows Pit Slayer. You know what to do. You know the objectives. Get it done, right? That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, where the snipers are. You know the power. You know everything. You know the meta of the map. There's no excuse to be down 38-12 in a game 5 when you're Sentinels and you're playing against Tusk and his team that they just put together. That's something I wanted to get off my chest. Second thing, that's the bigger issue, or the bigger topic at hand, is Sentinels not letting Inconceivable win the game by getting 50 kills. Instead, they chose to end the game on their own, and because they were the party leader. So let me tell you, and y'all give me your take on how you see the sportsmanship in that decision, right? Obviously, let me preface this by saying Sentinels has a great history of being a super respectful, integrity. They're the definition of that team that you want to strive to be like, in terms of how much work they put in, how much time they put in, to perfecting their craft, and they really respect the game. And for the most part, they respect their competition, but that's not what they did in this last tournament, in my opinion. Whenever you're playing, you have to put yourself in their shoes, right? If Sentinels was winning that game in a game 5 and the other team had hosts and they ended the game before Sentinels was able to get 50 kills, do you not think that they would be upset? And I'm sure they would go to Twitter and tweet about it and make it like it would be a thing. But the fact that they ended the game when players like or someone like Tusk is on the other team, all right? Tusk has never... And I may be wrong, but I don't think Tusk has ever won an online tournament. It's definitely not a LAN tournament, but maybe not even an online one before. So this was kind of his first time, and he's with his friends. I know Tusk is really, really good friends with Falcated and Boo Boo Dubu, and these guys are like best buds in the Halo community. And they were getting their win in a well-deserved way, and really, they were just killing it, and they were doing such a great job, and you kind of steal that moment away from them. You all know the feeling, like you're in a tough game 5 and you're like, get that 50th kill, and you're like, let's go, we did it. But like, it's not even up to you because the game gets ended at like 42 or whatever it was. So I watched Lethal's rebroadcast, and it's not like they weren't even aware of it. Lethal, they were saying, I heard Snakebite say, just end it, man. If we're not going to be, playing our game, just go ahead and end it. And I heard Lethal even kick back and be like, nah, like, let's just run at him. Let him get 50 kills. Just run at him. And then they make another push and they go all 4 dead again. And then you just hear like Royalty say, you just end it, bro. Just end it. And then APG's like, okay, I guess I'll end it. So, I can't even give them the benefit of the doubt of saying, they didn't know, whatever, trying to think of some excuse. They genuinely knew the circumstance and they ended it. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what y'all thought about that decision from Sentinels.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just going to give my best Skip Bayless impersonation right now, because we just had the GOAT discussion of teams last week, was it? And, between being swept by Splice in an entire series and a world championship, and now quitting, basically giving up in a game 5 of a championship match, you are disqualified. There is no way that discussion could even be had ever again. They are done. Sentinels is done in the GOAT discussion. That would never happen with Final Boss. I'm just saying, I got to get it out of the way. That would never happen.
Before you even,
that would never
not to
happen.
cut you off, go ahead.
I'm just saying, you already went, Faisal. You already went. You're going to go next, Wes. So save up your ammunition, whatever, but I'm not done yet. This team is incredible. We have seen them win and win well, right? But now in an opportunity to lose and lose with grace and really, kind of pass the baton a little bit and say, hey, great job. Instead, they decided to be sore losers and kind of just, blow off that moment, I felt like. And Faisal, you put it so perfectly, man. Tusk is having this amazing opportunity to finally get that win to overcome Sentinels, and it's kind of cheapened a little bit. They kind of just threw in the towel and said, whatever. And so for me, as a competitor, we've lost plenty of series in our lives. I've never once in a tournament said, hey, let's quit out and be sore losers. You got to take your, win with pride, obviously, but you got to lose with some grace as well.
Go ahead, Wes. Before you go, Wes, let me just say, I want to frame all of this, okay, in the big picture. It's not that, it's not that serious, in my opinion. You ended the game, and after the game, Snakebite and everyone on Sentinels typed in the little text box saying GG's, good games. So they were respectful. They just knew it was over. We all knew it was over. And they ended it. We've never really seen a finals be that much of a difference. And at LAN, it's a little bit different. I don't think it would have been ended if it was a LAN tournament, but it was online and it was literally over, and then they ended it. So not to completely let them off the hook, but I wanted to frame it in the way where let's just tone it back a little bit. It's not, you can't say that they're disqualified from they're still the best team of all time.
Nope.
All right. Are we done?
Go ahead.
That you had to drink a bunch of pool water because the chlorine
the pool water got to him.
Is absolutely flowing through your brain cells right now. This is going to be just such a long rant that I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with the fact that you just compared a team that won 3 tournaments in Final Boss in 2007 to a team that has been running Halo for about 5-6 years at this point, outside of maybe 5 tournaments in 6 years, 5 years, whatever it might be. Anyways, we're not going to go down that road. We had the show discuss that, and this MCC Online Pro Series Tournament in Halo 3 in 2020 does not even it can't even stain the armor of the shield that this team has built to claim that throne, right? So let's put ourselves. I like Faisal's point of view. Let's put ourselves in the heads of Sentinels for this situation, right? You haven't practiced. You haven't played Halo 3 as a team at all. You got Lethal playing every day. He wants to win, clearly. APG's probably right beside him. He wants to win. You got Snakebite, who streams during the day. He plays online. Rarely ever plays with his teams. Really just plays to stream and keep his skills up going into Infinite. World 2, he'll hop on Halo every now and then, not miss a shot, and then verify that he's still the best player in the game and then get off, right? That being said, we know what Sentinels is when they take it serious. You said it yourself. They did not practice going into this tournament. They did not play together at all going into this tournament. Yes, they played in the tournament. No. Are they taking it serious? Are they showing up to training camp? Are they putting in the reps that they know that they need to have the success that they know when they put in the work, what success looks like? They know now when they don't put in the work, what success looks like. I think that everybody's waiting for Infinite, right? We're all waiting for Infinite. These MCC Pro Series are great to keep the muscles going, to entertain us in the meantime. But by no means are we going to be calling these things championships, in regards to, how many rings do you have?
I have a little bit of pushback.
We're talking about rings, and we're talking about the online MCC Pro Series in Halo 3 in 2020.
Yeah.
There are 2 major differences. Let's not get that twisted. That being said, I cannot stand what I saw out of them. That was completely unprofessional. You do not do that. You do not rip away a moment for somebody else like you did for Inconceivables. Inconceivables still celebrated the way they should have, still owned the moment like they should have. Love those guys. Congrats to those guys. Sentinels should feel bad for what they did. They should never do that again. Let that be an example for everyone as a competitor. When you win with grace. You get to celebrate. When you lose, you do it with respect, and you do it like not on your own terms. You do it on
you do it like a professional. Yeah, you got to act
Absolutely.
like a. And Sentinels is the representation of professionalism in Halo. Like we all know what they stand for in the Halo community. So to see something like that, it definitely is a little bit of a stain, and it's a blunder. But it's not something that's going to take away any of their obviously their long list of accomplishments. And as far as Wes, I want to push back a little bit on what you were saying, like, oh, we know they haven't played and this and that. But at the end of the day, they made it to the grand finals. They were in a game 5, ice up, baby. Like, this is it. It's game 5. It's Pit Slayer, Halo 3. All you guys know what to do. They've played this game so much. I know they didn't practice together, but you made it to the finals, so obviously you're good. Like, you made it to a game 5, so you know what's up.
They could literally play blindfolded and probably make it to the finals half the time nowadays. Like, that team is that talented, right? Like, if they're not in the finals, somebody's internet probably went off.
I'm just saying, man, they were in a game 5 and all the chips were on the table, and I know, and they got like
it's Halo 3, right? Like, there's a reason back in Halo 3 in 2010 anybody was beating anybody at the end, because everybody knows what to do, everybody knows the plays. It's about
what team closed out 2010 with consistent tournament victories, though?
I already know that same team at a tournament. What are you saying right now?
I'm just saying, you said nobody could win consistently. They literally showed you that they won.
And that's why that final boss team was so impressive back then. Because they were able to do that. Because that same team, I actually 3-0'd.
Like, and that's personally, side note, that's actually why I love Halo 3 and how far, like, how deep into the game it is right now, because of that reason. Like, everyone is like, the skill is so high that it's almost like a chess match, right? It's like a battle of. Yeah, so that's why I enjoy watching Halo 3 now, because it's not about who knows certain angles, who knows certain spots, who knows certain nerdy things. It's like we all know the same stuff. Who's going to do it better?
Who's going to make the play?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Who's going to step up and make the play in that specific game?
And I believe they had host in that game. Yeah, they did. They had host in the game 5, dude, and they got beat like 40 to 20.
Isn't the same thing as host on Heretic or host on Amp or host on Onslaught. Host on Pit.
Come on. You have host and you lost 40 to 10. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, on Pit, where you can shoot from top turret literally to almost anywhere on the map. And we saw how Pit, and one of the side notes is, I love how different Pit TS plays now than it did back then. My God, back then it was so boring at times. But to see teams constantly trying to push it and get an advantage, and then to see Inconceivable come out in the replay after they were up. Normally we see teams that are up in replays come out like flat or upset or whatever. They came out in that replay and went up like 7-0 right off the rip. 4 down Sentinels, get their sniper, get control, and literally did not stop pounding them until Sentinels literally waved the white flag.
And it happened. Yeah, but it literally happens. Like in Halo 3, that used to happen. When I was on BTH and we beat straight ripping, that's how it happened. like we literally got off to a hot start in game 5 and we never looked back. Were we better than straight ripping? Probably not.
No, that's a good point. I mean, and again, I just want to rewind it and again put it into perspective. It's a Halo 5 Pit Slayer in 2020, and like I said, I watched Lethal's rebroadcast, and after the tournament, he's talking about it, and he did mention, like the team didn't practice. Obviously, I'm sure he was upset, and Lethal has a funny way of, he doesn't really show it, but in his mannerisms, you could tell that it definitely bugged him. He's a competitor, he probably hates losing more. That's why he wins so much, right? He probably hates losing more than anyone in the world. So I know I expect them to, and they're still going to be my favorite to win the next tournament. I expect them to, even if I hope, I don't want to say I expect, but I hope that they practice and kind of give themselves a little bit more reps under their belt and kind of come a little bit more prepared, just because we're used to seeing that out of Sentinels. We always praise them for the discipline and they're the best team and they still practice like they're the worst team. Like they want it more than everyone and they already have it. Like we always say that about them. So it kind of reflects their image to me in a sense. Like I don't want to put them in the category of, oh, they don't care. Like that's what separates Sentinels in my head, is that they're the best and they do care. So I hope they kind of get their stuff together moving forward in the next couple of weeks and they come back strong in the next Pro Series, in the next tournament.
I would be shocked to see if Sentinels did not practice coming into this next one. I think you do see on weekdays, Sentinels online, trying to get a scrim, trying to play playos together, trying to figure out all the little kinks and figure out how they're gonna play certain game types and try to perfect their little game, because I expect them to rebound like they typically do. That being said, we just talked about how in Halo 3 it really felt like, as a competitor, that anybody could win a game 5. And the reason behind that, it was a Team Slayer. Team Slayer has haunted the better team in series throughout competitive Halo's existence over time, and there's always been an argument amongst pros, especially by the higher seeded pros. Does Slayer belong in a competitive Halo series? I want to start it off with you, Justin, and I'm looking forward to hearing the answer.
Yeah, I've swung both ways on this in terms of, yes, it belongs. No, it absolutely does not belong. It should not be a game type at all. And I'm not going to say I've landed in the middle, because I definitely think that it doesn't necessarily belong. I think when I look at other competitive FPSs, we don't see any other games having Slayer as a game type. I think there's a reason for that. However, with Halo's storied past, I don't think we're ever going to do away with Slayers. But for me personally, this is my opinion alone, I would like to see Slayers limited to one game tops, with that being game 5 only. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, objective game types, you cannot refute this fact, take much more control and coordination to win in an objective game type, whether it be flag, oddball, king of the hill. I don't think you can debate that point, that you need to have more control for a longer period of time, potentially, because these objective games can run longer. So if you limited Slayers to only game 5, what you would see is the teams that landed in that game 5 belonged there, and that series deserved to be in a game 5, because the teams have shown even control throughout the series, landing them in that situation where it's more of a toss-up. The way it is right now, and I will say this is a pro and a con, like, the pro, I think it would be a pro for a spectator, but as a competitor, it's a con. That last series we just talked about, Inconceivable and Sentinels, does not go to game 5 without that game 2 Slayer, period. That AMP Slayer. The dominance that Sentinels had, throughout the objective games, I guess with the exception of the narrow slag, but with the way they dominated game 1 on Onslaught flag and the way they dominated Construct King, I think it's pretty safe to say that series would have probably been a 3-1 without that AMP Slayer to kind of break it up and give that Inconceivable, I guess, a glimmer of hope. I just don't believe, like, the way I view it is, at the highest level of play, I would say the better team wins an objective game probably 7 out of the 10 times. Whereas I feel like, no, I'll go 8 out of 10. The better team will win the objective game type in a close, highly competitive match 8 out of 10 times, especially when it's King of the Hill and Ball, some of these like more coordinated game types. And for Slayer, I would say it's maybe closer to 60-40, like the better team is going to win. That's my take. I know it's controversial, but I'm interested to see what you guys think about that. So, Faisal, why don't you go first, bro?
Yeah, I definitely disagree with your point. I think although you can't refute the fact that objective game types take more control, but I would still push back and say Slayer requires a different skill in itself. A team Slayer with hardcore settings, like the competitive settings, requires a skill set in itself. Obviously, it's different than the objective skill set. It's different than a flag, ball, or a hill, but it still requires, And what separates, you compared it to other FPSs, Halo, the time to kill in Halo is longer than other FPSs, most other FPSs. So you have those BR battles that are like a full-on engagement that it's like takes a lot of skill to win. So doing that as a team 50 times and getting 50 kills, in my opinion, really requires a certain type of skill set. And it's not something that you just flip a coin and either team wins. Obviously, we've seen some of the upsets or surprises in matches happen because of Slayers in certain situations. But I think Slayers bring us some of the most exciting and memorable moments in Halo's history. And I think they have cemented themselves a place in Halo moving forward, right? And I don't want to limit it to just one game in the series, because I like seeing teams slow it down. I like seeing a stalemate in certain situations, especially when it's at a tournament setting and there's millions on the line. Like there's a lot. I can't think of many other things than a stalemate when both players in the other team, like a Frosty and a Shotzi, have a sniper rifle and it's a stalemate on a map, right? Like that is what I live for when I watch these tournaments. And it's just so tense, and there's so much on the line in these Slayer games. Every kill, literally every death matters so much, and I just think that brings a lot of excitement to the series. And across Halo's history, we've seen it. I mean, for me, like, my most memorable moment in Halo's history was in a Slayer game, right? That game 11 when I was on Warriors against Triggers Down, like, that happened because it was a Slayer game. And to your point, you want it to be a game 5 or maybe a game 11 kind of scenario. So you kind of differentiate, you make sure that both teams should even be in that situation. But I kind of like having that game 2 swing game. That's what we call it in Halo. It's the swing game. So even if the other team wins game 1 and your team wins game 2, you're like, yo, we got the edge in this series. Like, let's win this game 3. And that's why I think the way the series layout is set up across Halo is great, and I think it should continue that way, with Slayers having two of the maps in the 5 games should be Slayer, I think.
All right. Yeah, I think both are professional opinions that are pretty common amongst a lot of players throughout time, right? I think you gotta break it down, and Hunter, I think you did a good job of breaking down 2 sides of it. Faisal, you kind of chose that specific angle of it, and I can appreciate that and understand your opinions on it. For me personally, when I was a player, I hated Slayers. Well, let me take that back. I hated Slayers when I was playing a team that was worse than my team, because it gave them an opportunity to compete with mine. When I was the underdog, I loved Slayers because it gave me the opportunity to beat a team I probably shouldn't be beating at a tournament, right? And I love that about the best of 5 Halo series that 2 Slayers are in. Similar to what Faisal's saying, is as an underdog, I have a chance to beat this team that I know is better than me because I can win these 2 Slayers. I got to win an objective somewhere along the way.
You still got to win an objective.
It's doable. If I'm playing 5 objectives or 4 objectives to get to the Slayer, we would see so many less upsets in Halo. And I think that the game would get really stale. And I think that competitions would get really stale. Mm-hmm. Like, you think Sentinels was dominant in Halo 5, take away the Slayers. Take away the Slayers and they have an X Games gold medal. Take away the Slayers and how many other tournaments did they lose to teams that probably won a majority of the Slayers against them? I think as a commentator, as a fan of the game, my opinion changed. I think Slayers are necessary. I think they're the most readable game type from a watchability standpoint. Every time I watch this player get a kill, they are awarded 1 point. These points add up to a total, and when the scores are close and the game is about to end, every single point is just a monumental moment. To Faisal's point, when he hit that no-scope on SK, a monumental moment. You would lose that if it was an objective. You would be like, yeah, Faisal hit that snipe, but then the monumental moment would be him punching in the last flag. And we would lose that punctual moment where you hit that shot and that basically ended the game.
End the series, end it. We'll go home.
And we lose that without Slayer. And that's why I think it's necessary. Is it necessary as a game 5? Yes. Is it necessary as a game 2? That's up for debate, but I need to see something other than what we have on the plate in order to kind of entertain introducing something else, right? If you're going to play 4 objectives and 1 Slayer, I need 4 different objectives. I don't want to be seeing 2 capture the flags, 2 King of the Hills, 2 oddballs, whatever it might be. That's my opinion. So, I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to pick a side, whether or not it does belong. But I think from a viewership perspective, I honestly lean towards Slayer belongs in Halo. It's a tried, true game type that we've always had as a legacy standpoint. There's just too many positives to be able to try and remove it. It sucks for the teams that are on top, but you need to take care of business, and winning the Slayers is part of that. So I don't feel bad for you if you lose them. In fact, that's why they're there. Yeah,
I love that you kind of are able to see both sides, Wes. I think that's a strength that you have. Really quick before I jump into my point, I just got a comment on the goofy snipe, Triggers Down game 5. I've said it before to friends that have asked me about Halo 3 moments, and I got to say it now, Faisal. Like, that to me is the most iconic push moment in Halo 3 history, period. Like, nothing comes close to that with so much on the line that you would make that play, that ballsy play, pushing the other team and really taking the game into your own hands. Like, hands down, that's the sickest clip I've ever seen in a tournament for Halo 3. Anyways, into my point, I think there are two sides to that coin in the competitive perspective and the viewership perspective. I think Slayers, the reason why I'm even down to have a Game 5 Slayer is strictly for that viewer. As a competitive, the question I have to ask is, are we sacrificing competitive integrity for the sake of entertainment? Because we just brought up that the Slayers are a chance for the lesser than team. I don't think anyone would say Inconceivable what is a better team than Sentinels. I don't think anyone would say that it's okay that we've been in so many series where the team that's worse than us wins that game too, and we're like, well, shucks, now the series is going to go longer than it has to be, and then it's a 3-1. You know what I mean? I don't know. Go ahead, Faisal.
If they're worse than you, then beat them. It's a Slayer. Like, you're on even playing field. I don't care if there's no such thing as luck. Like, you make your own luck. I don't care if obviously the lesser teams are known to win some of those Slayer game ties, but that's just because, in my opinion, the better team kind of isn't locked in enough. Like, you need, at the end of the day, it's an even playing ground. If you're the better team, then win the game, right? I think in Halo, Slayer is a great game type, and it's kind of like it adds that excitement element, like you guys were both touching on. So, like, think about the NCAA, right? March Madness. It's just, obviously, if you could make the argument, it should be a best of 5 series, so the best team wins. Right. No, what makes it so exciting is that the one team, we win one game and boom, you're on to the next round, they're knocked out. So it's not all that in the best of 5. You still have your objectives, but there needs to be a healthy balance of that kind of that surprise factor, or that, that gives that team, the lesser team, like we're saying, a chance to really make the upset. And even still, I mean, if you're the better team, stop it. Get the 3-0, move on. Like, simple.
Do you think Inconceivable is a better team than Sentinels?
No, but there's so many more factors that went into them losing that series. Not because they lost the Slayers. It's the fact that they didn't practice. They weren't playing well. They weren't taking it serious. The list goes on. It wasn't just because the Slayers game 2 and the Slayers game 5. They also lost an objective.
Inconceivable also did their part. Hey, like, look at it this way. You're a professional Halo player. Every best of 5 you will ever play as of today had 2 Slayers in it. That is what? Someone crunched the math for you. Like 40%? Something around there?
Yeah, it's 40%.
40% of your job is to master this game type and mode.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Right? Like, that's 40% is almost half, right? It's obviously it's not, but like, still, it is your job as a Halo professional player to win this game mode. You're playing 2 Slayers every best of 5. If it goes the distance, it is your job to close out those games.
Yeah. And it would be one thing if this is a ridiculous example, but it's because it's Slayer, you spawn with like random weapons, like I was one time in like a Halo 4 tournament, or there's some randomness to it where you can directly correlate the loss. But at the end of the day, everyone spawns with the BR, everyone knows the weapons. It's completely even, and the better team should win, and the better team does win, in my opinion.
The better symmetrical maps in Halo 3. Like, yeah. It'd be different if it was like Slayer on the rig, and like one team really had an advantage at the start, but it's not.
Yeah.
You spawned it red, I spawned it blue. Like,
and honestly,
routes everywhere are the same.
Yeah, but and there can be some adjustments, right? So, for example, getting more specific, and I know we're specifically talking about Halo 3, but let's talk about Heretic Slayer. I would not be opposed to maybe spawning with just one plasma grenade instead of 2, to kind of negate a lot of the randomness that comes from insta-sploding and just chucking grenades. That's a very specific example. But a map like Amplified, I love Amplified Slayer. And Amplified Slayer is such a great game type. There's so many strategies to it. You can be the team that plays low and is aggressive and runs at you. You can be a team that jumps on the towers. There's so much, so it depends. I think you're right, Wes. There have been in Halo's history, there's been certain maps where you can make it. Yeah, where it should not be a Slayer because there's a clear advantage for one team. But for maps where it makes sense, like a pit, a Narrows, an Amp, a Heretic, like hell yeah, I love Slayers on those maps.
My thing is if you want to start messing with the sandbox, which I love the idea of that, you want to talk about integrity and the kind of and Slayer potentially limiting the integrity. Why don't you just turn it up to 60 kills? Why don't you turn it up to 75 kills? Why don't you turn it up to 100? Do you think the better team beats the worst team more often than not when they're playing to 100? I do, rather than 50. And because 50 is such a small number that we limit the opportunities these players have in these Slayers in order to make plays. And with that, you're messing with fire, right? And I think that's where the problem lies. So if you're going to mess with Slayer and you're going to try and fix it and improve the quote unquote integrity of the game mode, I think you look at extending the amount of score to win, and that gives the openings and the opportunity for players to express themselves more throughout the game.
Yeah, I could see it maybe going to like 75 or something, because traditionally Slayers have been a lot shorter game types. They usually run like 3, 4, 5 minutes depending on the map, maybe 6. So that's I like that. That's an interesting
3
take.
minutes.
I mean, Amp Slayer.
What kind of Slayers are you playing, dude?
Amp will go.
He's getting spawn killed for 3
He's
minutes.
getting beat 50 to 20. It
I'm
was
on the
over
tower.
3 minutes.
I'm on the tower on Amp, bro. But I would like to see. I want to throw this idea out there, right? And I want to see if we can end the show with this, us all being in agreement on something. I'd be interested to see your take on this, guys. What if we only ever played Slayer on symmetrical maps?
Wait, is that the question? Like,
Yeah.
what's the question?
Do you guys think Slayer as a game type would be better if it was only ever played on maps that were symmetrical? So that means no rig, no construct, no Beaver Creek. Yeah. What about you, Wes?
Not to say, and just sorry, I'll let you go, Wes, but not to say that there can't be. I just need to see it. And maybe there already is one, an example that I'm not remembering just at this moment, but just in trying to think logically, I feel like it makes the most sense to have it just because it's the most, obviously it seems to be the most fair. But I'm sure there have been certain maps in Halo's history that weren't symmetrical, that were good Slayer maps. I just can't really think off the top of my head right now.
Hello?
Yeah, Lockout Slayer was a great game.
Was Lockout Slayer a good game type?
No,
Come on, that's a whole nother show.
Lockout Slayer was actually one of the worst game types.
Okay, well, I defer to you because I never played Halo 2, so now I look like an idiot. Okay.
I think in Halo 5, they did a good job with rig and making it kind of equal opportunity to power up to power weapon control. Absolutely. Like, I think by the end of Halo 5, on the maps that were non-symmetrical, teams kind of had even opportunity, and I think that's what's important, is equal opportunity to power ups and power weapons at the start, and then from there you can play the game. Plaza Slayer is one of the best games in Halo 5. It's a non-symmetrical map, but both teams have multiple routes to overshield. Both teams can contest the snipe that spawns. There's gonna always be a favorable side. There will always be a favorable side, but making sure that doesn't just dictate the pace and the way the game plays early on is vitally important. And I'm not gonna just limit it to symmetrical maps, because I think that would create an extremely stale style of Halo that I personally don't want to be a part of.
Yeah, I love it. I love the discussion, guys. Love the conversations we had today. I think we'll start to wrap it up there on episode 4 on that note. But as always, guys, we want to hear from you. So let us know in the comments on both Twitter, YouTube, everywhere else. Let us know what you guys thought. Do you guys think Slayer belongs in competitive Halo? Yes or no? Also, what did you guys think about the MCC Pro Series, the first weekend of Halo 3? What were your thoughts on the whole Sentinel situation? We want to know. Get at us. And also, as always, be sure to recommend topics that you guys want to see us cover. We love to hear from you guys, and you guys give us a lot of awesome ideas for the show. Before we close, though, I don't think it would be right for us to close out the show without, sending our condolences as well. King T'Challa, a.k.a. Chadwick, and we lost this week. A huge loss to the entertainment industry, but also I think a huge loss to the world. And, we're all feeling that one. Wakanda forever. But even more than that, he was a man, and a great man at that. So rest in peace to him, and thoughts and prayers to his family as well. Let's kick things off. As always, I'm Justin, a.k.a. Hunter JJX. You can find me on Twitter, Hunter_JJX, and twitch.tv/Hunter_JJX. I'm streaming Halo Live every single freaking day for you guys. Faisal, where can we find you? What are you up to?
Yeah, thank you so much, Justin. You guys can find me on Twitter at my Twitter handle is ggoofy, and my Twitch, where I stream every single day as well, is twitch.tv/goofy. And like Hunter was saying, please let us know in the comment section what you guys want to see out of the show. At the end of the day, we're doing this because we love Halo and we love the community, and we love being interactive with you guys. Every single week we get to hear what you want to say and hear what you want us to talk about. So we really value that in your guys' comments. So please let us know, like the video, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, tell people about the show. We're going to be doing this every single week. Every Monday you'll catch a new episode. So I just wanted to put that plug in there. But Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the Twitter is Wes_Clutch. The what is it? We're gonna do Instagram is Wes Price.
Instagram. Okay.
I'm building an Instagram. You know what it is. The OnlyFans is Wes Price as well.
All right. I'm signing off.
It's not TV/InTheClutch if you ever want to watch me. I'm probably playing Halo, Valorant, whatever it might be. But typically complaining at my teammates about how they need to step it up and putting the blame on someone else. But hopefully that's not any of you viewers.
All right, guys, that'll do it for us. Thank you for making it this far. If you did, our longest episode yet. Also, random sign up. Thank you for helping get episode 1 to 1,000 views. Awesome. We love you guys. Catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.